Europeans who visited America, what was your biggest WTF moment? Did a house exchange in New Jersey from UK, and on the second day a neighbor came to the door with an actual cherry pie to welcome us and ask us to dinner. Was 1. A huge confirmation of stereotype. 2. Really touching and sweet. Pie was also wonderful BTW. 3. A bit weird because we knew our neighbors wouldn't give a flying frick and we felt bad. Wait till you have neighbors with trees and vines, and getting a jar of jam is just amazing. Not a WTF moment, but nevertheless a moment I will remember. It was my second trip to California. I was only 18 years old when I got out of the plane. As usual, I had to go through all those security checks. At the last checkpoint, the officer asked me whether I have anything in my suitcase that I didn't mention on his CBP thing. Then he asked for drugs and then for alcohol. I honestly answered all questions with no, when surprisingly he asked me why not. A bit confused, I told him that I knew I wasn't allowed to take drugs or drink alcohol in his country. He got interested and asked whether it was different where I'm from. Germany. Here the minimum age is 16 for light beverages like beer and wine and 18 for the other stuff like spirits. He was so interested, he kept asking stuff for like 5 minutes, not even minding the 100 people behind me. When he let me pass, he instantly turned towards the guy in the other checkpoint, was like, "Hey, did you know?" Damn, I just realized a lot of people's first experience in America are these clowns at SAR. First thing I saw after sitting down to have my first beer in Portland was some guy walking in the middle of the street, half-butt dressed as a ninja, with 2 swords on his back. Oh, and before that some homeless guy told me and my friend to go back to your country. Then some slightly hippie looking girl apologized for his behavior. We just laughed at how scripted the situation felt and went to have the beer above. Also, when you play Grand Theft Auto you hear strangers on the street yelling and talking about weird crap. That just felt exaggerated until I went to the US and realized it actually happens all the time. Ironic that a homeless guy tells you to go home. In 2015 I went to Florida. We walked past a crazy golf place and a guy was holding an alligator in his arms. He also told me he had an 8-foot alligator in the back. I'm from England, so I don't think I'll ever quite get over just how casual he was having a freaking alligator in his arms. That's very much a regional thing. My wife is from Florida and isn't fazed by alligators. I'm from Georgia, Alabama, and I won't go near the dang things. Not European but Arab. Went to some diner in Portland, Oregon, and I ordered coffee. Halfway in my coffee she asked me if I wanted a refill. I politely declined, telling her I was short on cash. She laughed and said refills are free of charge. And to top of my amazed reaction, she complimented my shirt. Needless to say, she cured my hangover and I fell in love. Had my cousins come over from Latvia for a few weeks. They never got over the absolute size of stores like Walmart and the sheer amount of products offered. When I ordered a cappuccino at IHOP and it came in a bowl-sized mug with cream on top and was filled with sugar and vanilla. IHOP was madness. I think my order was about 9,000 calories. Not European, I'm Australian, but went to a Walmart in Arkansas. It was just like stepping into the People at Walmart page. Walmart, Arkansas. Ha, you jumped in with both feet right there. European gone to Texas. The difference in religion is astounding. It's so much more prevalent in people's lives here. There are some beautiful churches in Europe, but they don't seem to have the same spirit as Texas. Also, holy frick, the driving distances are immense. An hour commute in the morning is normal for people. A lot of US states are larger than most EU nations. Yes. Back in 1987 and asking for a burger and chips. Then sat wondering why the hotel waitress looked at me funny. Then my food turned up. On the other hand, if you ask for fish and chips, everyone in the US will know what you mean. The only time that chips means French fries in the US is if it's preceded by the words fish and. So I've been living in the States for 3 years now, originally from England. I turned to my co-worker one day and asked, "Can I borrow a rubber?" She proceeds to do a double take and said, "What?" I asked again and told her it was to rub out the mistakes I made with a sketch I was working on. She proceeds to burst out laughing and explains to me what a rubber really means. I should have said eraser. While in Florida, we went through a drive-thru and the lady couldn't understand what I was ordering regardless of how slowly and carefully I spoke, so I decided to go inside instead where the lady behind the counter couldn't understand me either. I am a northern Brit but not too broad an accent. My little sister had to put on her Florida accent to order for us. The manager who eventually took the order said she was sorry as the staff were only used to normal English, lol. Boston. Didn't notice I had left Europe. Houston. The people were as friendly as they were huge and loud. Hugely loud and loudly huge, I guess. Nashville and other places I went kinda blend together in my head, except for the delicious food. Oh, and the person who asked if my country had coins and traffic lights. What? Yes, I mean, what? I was extremely surprised that in fast food restaurants you will find unlimited soft drinks from time to time, like a refill cup, yet people pay extra for a bigger cup, so they don't have to walk too often, I guess. While walking around Austin, random people would just give me a "Hey, how's it going?" as they walked past. In the UK, if someone even looks like they might glance in your direction, it probably means they're about to try selling you something. I probably offended a couple of them with how defensive I seemed. Come to New York, you'll like it. We won't even look in your general direction. There's freaking flags everywhere. The American flag density per square km is so much higher than any other place I've been. It's like every other house has a flag. The number of American flags on display very dramatically shot up after 9/11. This is not me. I read a story of 4 Germans who had just finished high school and were going on a USA road trip of beer and weed in some places. They didn't find out the drinking smoking age was 21 until they got there. I had a foreign exchange student friend come from Germany when we were about 19-20, and he ordered a beer the first time we went out to eat. He was shocked when they asked for it and denied him a drink. We laughed and asked if he knew that 21 was the drinking age here. He just replied, "Yes, I heard that, but it seemed too ridiculous. I thought no one would care." Jacksonville, Florida, 2010. During some jazz blues street festival, a lady across the street shouts hi there. I shout back hello. She clocks my accent immediately. Britain, Woo-Briatayn. I nod slightly. I go back there in a month for the first time since. I left my hotel in Texas at 7 a.m. Stopped at McDonald's and got enough breakfast sandwiches to last me through lunch. I then stopped at a gas station to get gas and cigs and 2 Cokes. I gunned it through Texas, sometimes going over 90 miles an hour. I stopped one more time to go to the toilet and get gas and snacks. At 7:30 p.m. I stopped at the hotel to spend the night. I was still in Texas. From Beaumont to El Paso is almost as far as Paris to Budapest. Was at a 4th of July party in the middle of the woods, chilling, having a great time and some beers, zip-lining from a tree into a lake. It was like a 90s film come true. Out of nowhere, this redneck comes in with an AR-15 slung over his shoulder shouting, "Let's shoot some crap up." Naturally, I shat myself and made to run into the woods before realizing he was just a guest who turned up a bit late. He turned out to be a really nice guy. This is hilarious. I'm Canadian, not European, but still the first time I saw a dude walk by me, into a bank no less, and he stood near a cop, with a gun on a holster, and not cause crap, it blew my mind. Edit. For those of you wondering, it was somewhere in Texas. It was something like 30 years ago, and for all I know he was breaking the law and just didn't get caught in the minute or so I remember looking at him. I went into a Pizza Hut in Nevada and the guy working the register was open carrying. It's normal here, all arguments for or against aside. The space. You guys have so much unused untouched space. It's crazy. In Europe there is barely anywhere that isn't owned or isn't being used. In Europe we have protected forests. In America you have some unrestricted, uncontrolled forests that are massive. Tell that to Scandinavia. They have all this freezing cold land and no people to populate it with. It blows me away that Stockholm has less than 1 million people in it and it's the biggest city in Sweden. I grew up in suburbs that were more populated than that. In Florida, how amazingly friendly people were whilst talking absolute nonsense to make us happy. We are from Wales in the UK. This guy at a burger store asked where we were from and started to tell us how he loves Wales, then went on about how his mum lives there. We asked what part of Wales does she live. His reply, Paris, I think. Americans don't have mums, so he must have been lying. I'm an Aussie who visited USA. Hope it's okay for me to crash this thread. We loved our visit, loved the whole bloody place, but I was absolutely gobsmacked when I found Fruit Loops with marshmallows. I genuinely did not think it was possible to make Fruit Loops more unhealthy, but you guys did it. Love your work. We're here for a good time, not a long time. I used to live in Canada but live in the US now. It was really weird to me that when I use my debit card it can be ran as debit or credit. Didn't make sense, and to my knowledge doesn't really make a difference. In the US there is a law protecting credit card users, from back in the early 70s I think, that gives you legal recourse against theft and other things. You don't have those protections with a debit card. Since the credit card companies charge less for debit transactions, the store would prefer you do debit. As a US consumer you are much safer using credit. This in 2013. Paying water bill by sending a check in the mail. Giving credit card information off the phone. The entire tipping concept. When I was in Las Vegas I saw this 300kg specimen pouring 3 packets of sugar sweetener into his Pepsi at the breakfast buffet. Most Americans would think that whole sentence is freaking disgusting. I went to Vegas and saw a homeless guy with a sign that said kick me in the balls for $20. This huge dude was well up for it. He had a bit of a run up and hoofed him right in the knackers. This poor tramp was rolling around in agony but got his money. As an American, this bothers me too. I had that moment in almost every restaurant. Way too much food on my plate and even a small Coke is a large Coke in my opinion. What's interesting is to see the differences from north to south as well. When I visited the south for the first time I ordered a medium meal at a Mexican place and was handed a tray full of food and a drink that was definitely a large up north. Later on for science I bought a large drink and honestly they're like a liter or more. But dang, I love me some sweet tea now. Went to Florida for holiday and it felt like every third car was a Toyota Corolla I think. There was an absurd amount of the exact same car in mostly the same color, red, and it was blowing my mind. Pretty stereotypical stuff. Couple we stayed with were hugely nice but very religious and overweight. They voted for Obama and then Trump. Also drove us 4 hours for a day trip. The bread is inexplicably sweet. A nice healthy pancake with blueberries for breakfast was actually 5 pancakes with blue syrup and whipped cream. I could get used to root beer floats though. A rare sentiment from a European. Mostly I hear that Europeans think root beer tastes like toothpaste. My brother lived in Tampa for a while. When I went to visit any American I spoke to told me their life story, their military career, how many jobs they have, kids they have, how old they are etc. I took a 40-minute trip in an Uber from the Keys to Weber and, I'm not kidding, this guy talked, seemingly without taking a breath, the entire time. As a Brit this was very uncomfortable. I'm American and I hate talkative Uber Lyft drivers. I'm hoping in the future the app has an option to choose quiet ride. 10 days in Houston, Texas. The amount of Mexican food available, Chipotle, etc. caught my anus by surprise. I had more than enough time to wonder why there is so much freaking water in the toilet bowl. I'm sure it means nothing, but it hurts my Texan heart that you had all that Mexican food available and Chipotle is the example you choose. Us Germans have the reputation of being deferential to all kinds of authority, and maybe deservedly so, but when there is some trashy drama going on in a US supermarket, there always seems to be someone who at some point threatens to call the manager if those shenanigans don't stop right away, sounding like they are about to conjure up some omnipotent eldritch deity. Which executive powers do store managers have in America? Are there states where they can invoke some kind of castle doctrine and pull a gun on you? It's just a way to have someone come over and properly defuse the situation by either giving some kind of discount or booting the person from the facility. Some places only the manager has the authority to do either without getting in trouble from the higher ups. I'd go into a store and everything had a price on it. Then I'd take it to the checkout, and all of a sudden they'd add a load of extra charges on top of it. Why not just include it in the price so I know what I'm going to have to pay for it? People, things that happen in Vegas don't count. Of course you're going to see weird and outlandish crap here, that's what the city is known for. Holy crap guys, I bought weed legally at a cafe and then fricked a prostitute. Legally. Sure, I was in Amsterdam, but like wow, it was weird. Just the sheer size of everything. Cars are all absolutely gigantic. In Fort Lauderdale, there seemed to be a parade of people driving on a Sunday. Huge frick-off trucks, Mustangs, Corvettes, all of the Bald Eagle Murica cars. The food was gigantic. In Mexican restaurant, we ordered a starter and main course each. They asked, do you want a guac and chips whilst you wait? They give us a literal bucket of guacamole and the equivalent of about 8 family bags of Doritos. TBH, I felt like I was in a film the whole time I was there. Huge frick-off trucks. That made me laugh. Not me, but a good friend of mine moved from France to Florida. He said he was having a smoke on his balcony when he heard someone in his apartment complex scream, "God damn it, put the fricking gun down." He doesn't smoke much on his balcony anymore. That's good. Smoking is deadly. In a reverse statement, everyone in Europe seems to know everything about American politics, but I can only name the German Chancellor Merkel. Went to New Jersey for work. The classics. Portions are enormous and public restroom stalls might as well not be there considering the size of all the gaps. Toilets have a weird shape and hold too much water. Also, everyone is so polite and talkative. As someone who is really crap at making conversation myself, this made me feel a lot less awkward talking to people, so that was nice. 1. Waiter takes your card away at the burger joint. 2. People with guns on their hip while doing their everyday Wednesday stuff. I'm from the Nordics, not used to the gun mania. 3. Attended a wedding. Everyone wearing suits that were a 2-3 numbers too big. 4. Glass size when you go out to buy a soda. Large has a new meaning for me now. 5. Prevalence of religion in everyday life. Where I'm from, nobody really attends church or talks about religion. Didn't realize that it played such a big role in the South. 6. Crap people ask you about regarding the Nordics made me smile. 8/10. Liked the place. Would visit again. Went to Florida in 2014. I'm from England and there's people in the supermarkets who pack your shopping for you. I always felt so lazy standing there while someone packed my food for me. That space in public toilets doors that allows everyone to see you in your most vulnerable moment. That's the dumbest design I've ever seen. Still rant about it 10 years later. When I went to Europe, the bathrooms made me feel so secure. It's like a small motel. Everywhere I read, I was told that customer service in the USA was amazing. Then I visited NYC and it swung between decent and I can barely be bothered to deal with you. Actually, you are an inconvenience. This may be an NYC thing, however. WTF is up with your bread? Getting a normal whole wheat bread or the likes without 300 grams of sugar is mind-blowingly hard to find. Probably a bit late to the party on this, but I went to Portland beginning of this year while on a business trip and I couldn't believe the amount of homeless people in downtown Portland. I am not talking about the odd person just sitting in the corner begging. There were a couple of streets with homeless people just strewn on the pavement, some laying down, some sleeping, some just talking to themselves and screaming. This was the first time it really hit me at how big the class divide is in the US and how this is normalized. I would like to believe if this happened in the UK it would be all over the news. And don't get me wrong, we do have homeless in London, but not at this level. While this is happening a few streets over, you've got the most hipster of markets with people talking about stopping gentrification and change the country, and I'm thinking, look, a few streets over, mate. Their area about 20 people just on the floor homeless and no one gives a crap. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.